White Walls. Welcome back to YEAHR. I want to talk about it. We've got a little moon here, just hanging out, and a little Tegan over here. Um, I wanted to pop on. I've been thinking about a few things. First of which, I think when I'm really struggling, which is often, mostly, I'm like, okay, I just got to do like a few basic things and I think there has to just start being a checklist that I start to run through. Kind of like how, in therapy they like tell you to pick the five senses, but I think I need something more like mm, anchoring than that. I think also Lee Harris had said something about when he was really struggling, even though he kind of scoffed at it and it was, it took him a minute to get into the rhythm of listing the things he's grateful for. And I also feel similarly and also have really tried to be more mindful about doing that. And I do find that when I do that, it is, it does significantly change my POV and my internal dialogue with myself, which is intense. And so being grateful, but also like get comfy. And that one today has really been coming to me of like, when in doubt, just like get fucking comfy. Because that's what I would do for Tegan. And so, like, try to start doing that for myself. Get high, get food, drink water. Um, and I think I've been picking up that writing has been super helpful. It doesn't, it's not always. I think allowing myself to sing and just do like voice memos, not have to have a musical instrument accompaniment or karaoke. I think that's helpful. I mean, karaoke is helpful on its own. But it's been really interesting how my relationship with so much of my stuff, like, I mean, pretty much everything in my life is such a different experience now. And I have such a different, like, woof, woof is pretty much all I can say. Um, this is gonna kind of be short and sweet, uh, but I've been watching a lot of Viva Betty, which is the podcast with Anna Ortiz and Mark and Delgado, who play the characters Hilda and Justin on Ugly Betty, this sitcom from, I think it was 2007 to 2015, maybe that's not right. That's not right. I think I'm overlapping Ugly Betty and Nashville, because I've also been dipping back into Nashville because Sam Palladio, who plays, or Palladio, however the fuck you say his name, he plays Gunnar Scott in the show Nashville, which, like, I love damn near every one of his fucking songs. Um, One of the songs that he did in the show was like on when I was like painting in my friend's backyard with like Tegan, and was like, oh my God, like, I have to, I think I've got to move to Nashville. And so deeply embedded in my own personal like lexicon. And he was at the bar on Saturday, but I was so fucking busy and like it just like head down, like just making drinks, like can't even hardly make eye contact. And I fucking miss seeing him, and I can't even believe it. I'm like, girl, it is not that imperative that these bitches get drinks that I couldn't have looked up for more than 5 seconds. But it was also like, there was like one guy who kept being like, baby girl, and like being like across the bar. And I was like, no, I'm not indulging that behavior. That is gross behavior. And so it was just like, it was a lot. But I miss seeing him. Oh well. I'm sure I will get another opportunity. But I'm also like, again, where I'm at the point where I feel so differently about stuff of like, I just wanted to set eyes on him, like I didn't want an interaction. I just wanted to be like, look, there he is in the 5 spot, which was also iconic in the show. How meta is my life right now, but also like, meh. I don't, well, and that train takes us to my, I think, final thought of, I've been thinking a lot of like, what is it that I want and need at this point? And like, how am I going to feel fulfilled in my life again? And, um, because like I see these musical acts like going and doing stuff, and I'm like, I feel nothing. I feel nothing. And also because like I'm like, I don't want to do it this way. Like I know what the back end of that looks like. And it's just this like circle jerk that I'm not interested in participating in. And I it's not it. It's not it for me. Like that looks so different. So I keep thinking like, okay, well, how does that look different? Like, is it the presentation? Is it the outlet? What is this thing? And I keep coming back to like a musical in nature, and that there's like some kind of kismet, and there's like, well, and talk about watching the Ugly Betty podcast, Viva Betty, is because they constantly talk about how fucking magical making this show from like top to bottom was, from like the production runners to like the transport people. Like, I mean, it just incredible. And they're like, you know, we've never experienced that again. And it's like 20 years later, and they're still like talking about how fucking magical it was. And like, I want to know that. I want to know what that collaborative magic feels like. And I think about it of like when I was in theater, and like you would be spending so much time together, so you just like bond so hard. And there was people that you bonded more than with others. But even like I remember, I was a teen, but like developing really strong relationships with the adult members of the cast, and like and like how, again, I'm always like searching for family. I'm always trying to create these like networks of people that feel like family, that like, and like it's, yeah, I don't know. I want to know what that like magic really feels like, instead of me having to kind of like manufacture it, or like not realize that it's something else than what I thought it was. Like it's not that deep, but I would always make it deeper than it was. And I'm ready to like not have that experience anymore in like friendships, in love, in intimacy, in like in bonds. I want it to be really mutual. And like I think I've talked before about how I've never really had any like super weirdo friends. Like I'm always the weirdest. And how, you know especially around jobs and work, how much my kind of like normie friends are like, but you have to have the job even if it's this thing that you don't find fulfillment in. And like, and I think about that, and I'm like, I get it. I get where that like is coming from, and that need for like the security. But like that's not actual security, that's manufactured security, which is, you know, designed to keep us in these like not safe for creativity spaces. And just how often I've struggled with like being like, well, I want to be able to just do the thing. Believe me, I do. I want to be able to just do the thing for money. But I like every fiber of my being is like, nope, not it. And even when I do try it and I'm immediately like, nope, not it. I should have trusted my instincts and not like people telling me I got to move to New York because I'll love it there. And like, and it, granted, I'm glad I did it. And I'm glad I did it when I did it. And having that time with Tegan in New York, like, iconic. But, you know, like, Nashville was the first place that like I ever just was like, I want, well, I mean, I say that and then I'm like, oh yeah, and I had this whole like London thing and like Mexico, and that's always been a thing too. I mean, there's just a series of um but like Nashville's the first one of my places that I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna finally just do this thing and I'm gonna fucking move here. And so I think maybe it's just like I'm just checking off the ones on my list. And I don't know, and finding out different things about what that actually has meant to me and what that means now that Tegan's not here, because that's a really different experience. And when I'm still just trying to grapple together here, you know, I, yeah. So, but I keep listening, like, the Evita soundtrack has just been on a loop, and that was a really formative soundtrack for me when I was a kiddo. We like went and saw the movie, and Audrey had gotten the CD, and like I remember after seeing it in the theater and coming home and being really taken with Night of a Thousand Stars, that song that Augustin Magaldi sings, and um, just really loving that vocalization. And then like Another Suitcase, Another Haul, I remember being like, what is this? And you know, funnily enough, those two songs like continue to be the thing I'm, you know, that really, you know, I've been doing them a little bit karaoke, just in the couchioke realm on the couch here. And just remembering like how just remembering what that felt like to hear those songs for the first time when I was younger, and how cool that was to now be like reflecting on that and still feeling that same way, you know? I think in terms of so much of my life has kind of been really influenced by other people, and me taking them at face value, taking them at their word, and that often backfiring in a variety of ways, from family to friends to work to um, even like creative collaborations. And that the thing that remains so true for me is like the things I loved when I was a kid, and that I find that I still really love, and that have like a, you know, like a very indelible mark on me. And I I was thinking about Ugly Betty today and then thusly crying because not really realizing that, I mean, there's so many beautiful facets to that show, but one of the main ones is the Suarez family, this like familial unit who's like not always getting it right, but that still like loves each other, genuinely loves each other, not performatively, and that they are always like still rooting for each other. And even like they're, the other characters that come in, they're, even when the characters seem irredeemable, like, Mark and Amanda, there's still like love for them from the Suarezes, and that being like Ugly Betty, or even like, you know, the other Suarez family, Ignacio specifically, and I think about how there was many times when I was just really going through it, and I would be watching Ugly Betty, and something Ignacio, who's like the father, the head of the Suarez family, would say, of just like caring for his children, and even just like those around him who were struggling, and just realizing like how much movies and shows and music and like this media has been my family, like the only actual family I've been able to know that has felt like it can hold me in ways even when I feel irredeemable, or like whatever it is. And and then that thusly gave me hope, and like made me feel not so alone in this world, when people around me had shown me only, that I was, only valuable if I had some kind of output for them. Um, and it's just, it's another one of those things of realizing my compass, my own internal compass, and how like I can absolutely trust it, because that is what it has always been. It has always helped me find the things in this world that I needed. So here's hoping that that continues, and that, I don't know, that this like musical that affords me these types of fulfillment that I have long looked for in my life, that maybe this is like how I get there, of making this musical. So, you know, we'll see how this develops, but amongst us duels here, there's something to it, Because again, another thing that like I think about when I had my first band, my a cappella band, started in French class. Actually, oh yeah, I forgot. I said in another episode that my first band started in French class with the girl in the Hanson shoes. But that actually wasn't my first band. My first band was the Flying Carrot Angels in seventh grade in French class. And that whole year of French class, we had a sub, Miss Rosterman, and she was just kind of like, she was a sub, she was cool. She was a cool teacher. And my friend Andrea and I, we just started writing songs one day, and then like came up with little melodies, and we recorded them. She had this like, I guess it was a reel to reel, and it had like these big reels with the tape on it, and you'd like turn it on. It had like, it's like this whole thing. And I think there was like some mics attached to it too, and turn it on and like record our stuff. Um, Funny. And why was I saying that? Oh, because we would hold concerts, forcing our friends to watch us sing our, I think we had like 4 songs. And I did also come across a journal entry. I was looking back through some stuff. Most of it's hard to read, like because it's just like real pick me energy. And I am like, oh no, I've always been that girl. And it's hard to reread. Um, and it like is like, I am like so dedicated to band practice, and Andrea's not taking it seriously. And she said she had a sore throat, but then she went to the pool, and like, I can't even believe it. You're just being upset. And meanwhile, I'm pretty sure that continued to be like the theme for my my like youth bands. Um, what are you gonna do? And why? Oh, okay. So all of that to say is we would hold our concerts at my friend Lily's house, and she lived in this like cool neighborhood, bougie. It was a well-to-do neighborhood, and it was called Dakota Ridge, and it was like also like very, it was like these kind of like mansiony houses in like the forest, and it was really pretty. And so she just like had trees and forest like all around her house. And there was this one point on like the driveway, and it was like this crazy long driveway. At one point, there was a sleepover, and I couldn't go to it because the mother couldn't get up the driveway. And so we had to like turn around and go home. And I was like, I should have just gotten out and walked. Like, but I think I was like, why didn't I just walk? And I'm like, oh, probably because she wouldn't let me. Because like, she's that bitch, like just needed to control and be like, well, we tried to go and I couldn't go up the driveway. Just whatever. That's another train that I'm not even interested in getting on. Um, it's hard to see all that stuff in retrospect, or like have things start clicking of like, oh, that's what that was. Yowza. Didn't see that at all. Because who would look for that when it's your parent and you think they're like, they love and care for you? And it turns out that that is not always true. However, however, there was this little like area off the driveway, her long ass driveway, that had like these three like pretty big logs, and they were just like kind of lined up. And so Andrea and I would stand on the far log, and then it, kind of had this like beautiful outlook too, like a little lookout point vibe. And then like our friends would sit on like the bleacher logs, and we would sing them all of our songs. So there's definitely something about like music and nature, and and like a musical though in nature. I don't know. There's I'll keep tinkering, because these are, as I'm coming to understand, these are sketches and like just little ways for me to like untangle some like brain knots and thoughts and feels. And there we are. So, Dwells, don't let nobody shame you. Don't you dare shame yourself. Until next time.